Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Reds Rundown podcast, hosted by two lifelong Reds fans and journalists. I'm Rob. He's Joe, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Joe, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. Reds are treading water right now.
Mm-hmm.
Rob has a birthday today, so happy birthday
Oh,
to Rob, everyone.
thank you.
Hopefully this new birthday of his will bring some good luck for the Reds this week because the schedule lines up pretty well for us. We'll see what they do with it, though.
This might be one of my more memorable birthday weeks because most of the time it feels like we suck. I feel like we lose most days that my birthday when the Reds play. So I don't know if that happens to you, Joe. Also, we'll have a birthday that we will be celebrating in the month of June because we're both some June birthday boys. But I appreciate it, Joe. And yeah, hopefully I can bring them a little bit of luck. But we'll jump into our question of the day as well. Who are the Reds' rivals, and do we even have one? I figured that this is worth us talking about just a little bit, Joe, before we hop into everything, because we did play the Cardinals and the Cubs this week, obviously. I know we have not necessarily been competitive over the last couple of years, but I feel like baseball has weird rivalries starting now that everybody's playing each other again. Like Yankees Red Sox hasn't felt as impactful as it used to be. At least in my mind, it's really felt like, almost, Dodgers Astros, stuff like that has become a little bit more prominent from what I can think of. But I wanted to ask you, Joe, I mean, who do you think the Reds rivals are, and do we realistically have one right now?
We are no one's biggest rival because Cardinals and Cubs have each
Mm-hmm.
other. And while we've had our little fights with the Pirates in the past, I don't know if that's really a rivalry, like a city rivalry, but not like a baseball team rivalry, Uh, but a lot of the Reds rivalries were more historic, like the
Mm-hmm.
Reds and Dodgers, and that obviously is pretty much gone
Yep.
now that the Reds are in an appropriate division. They're not in the NL West anymore. So yeah, I don't know that we're anyone's biggest rivals, but we do have rivals. They're just the Cardinals and Cubs. And what makes it tough to do that is the Cardinals and Cubs have a little bit more recent success than the Reds do. The Cardinals a lot more recent success, and the
Yeah.
Cubs that one World Series title. So it makes it hard when we don't match up with them very well, at least in recent history. I personally am not a big fan of the Cardinals overall as an organization, but I think the Reds fans might feel more hatred towards the Cubs because we have so many Cubs fans coming in for their games to the stadium, and they can
Yeah.
be really obnoxious. I love the passion though, so it makes it a lot of fun. We also have the Guardians in our home state. We know Battle of Ohio, but I'm not really sure that's a rivalry. It's a fun thing to do, but I don't know. So yeah, I mean, in terms of teams, I don't like if I'm picking my personal rivals for the Reds, it's Cardinals and Cubs. But again, it is very much like do they even think we're a rival? I don't even know.
Yeah, I feel like in the past, during the 2010s, maybe the Cardinals did, because outside of the World Series run for the Cubs, right, it was kind of hit or miss with them as well. But I will say I don't know if we have one right now. I think you actually have to be good and be competitive to have a rivalry really be created. And I feel like for most of our tenure in the NL Central, we have not really been good enough to really create like a true rivalry. I think the Pirates might be as close as we get to a technical rivalry, and that's just because we've been battling for the bottom, and then that one year where we both made the wild card game and lost that one wild card game, and then the Yasiel Puig fight that will go down in Renaissance painting history. I personally dislike the Cardinals the most. I dislike them even more than I dislike the Cubs, and I don't really hate the Cubs necessarily because I feel like the Reds play the Cubs, especially in Chicago, very well. I wanted to go back. I didn't have time, but I wanted to go back and see what their record was in Chicago over the last like 10, 15 years. It's always felt like because mostly of Joey Votto, that we have played pretty decently in Chicago because he always seems to hit the crap out of the ball while we were there. So I figured it was worth us talking about that because, like we talked about, we had Cardinals in town, then we went to Chicago. Felt appropriate as those are the first really division games that we're playing this year. And it started off well, Joe. The Reds won 3-1. Nick Lodolo was pretty freaking awesome, as per usual, it would seem. He gave up a first inning home run to Paul Goldschmidt, and I thought, just like you had talked about, I was like, oh God, Arenado and Goldschmidt are going to start hitting. They're in Cincinnati. No, we were good. Fernando Cruz strikes out 5. Candelario has a huge home run to tie things up. The rest of the team starts to hit a little bit as well. Ellie did a good job getting some walks, not striking out 10 times like he did, seems like in this Cubs series. And the Reds took it 3-1. Great day for them. Next day, not so good. Andrew Abbott had his worst outing of the season. Reds lose 7-1 in that one. Just not really much to write home about, to be honest with you. Team didn't look great. Bill Benson did hit a home run, as I like to call him, Bill Benson, but nothing really other substantial with that game. We head into game 3. You think, hey, rubber match, Reds are looking okay. Montage struggled a little bit at the start of the game, really settled in to give them 6 strong innings, something that he seemingly does. If he can figure out those early innings, hopefully he can, get that ERA down and really start to pitch, I think, in a more, beneficial manner to the Reds. But we had some timely hitting. Looked like things could be okay, and then Brent Suter and Buck Farmer were unable to get the job done. And as we talked about, even with the Reds had a chance in the 9th inning, Joe, but were not able to capitalize on it, finish things out. I think you and I were both feeling a bit of dread heading into the Cubs series after that. Won't speak for both of us, but I know I certainly was. They come out, win 5-4 in the first game. Ashcraft was amazing, struggled quite a bit in the one big inning he could not get out of. Cruz comes in, takes care of business. We have issues at the end of our bullpen as well. Diaz struggled mightily to get through that game. If it was not for Ellie De La Cruz, absolute rocket throw, and Hurtubise also feeling it well, the Reds would have lost that series for sure. We still don't know what the Cubs third baseman got paid by the Reds to make that decision as well. We head into game 2. 7-5 loss for the Reds. Really looked like they were doing pretty well. A big error by Suzuki in right field on a dropped fly ball. The Reds could not capitalize on it as Hunter Green gave up a grand slam, unfortunately, to Suzuki after it looked like he had really been pitching him really well. I believe even the pitch before it looked like it was going to be a strikeout. Does not. Grooves him a fastball. Reds lose that game as well on a 2-run home run by Lucas Sims. The Reds did come back in that game, and Lucas Sims gave up a 2-run home run on his signature 0-2 pitch. We head into the Sunday game. Reds come out on top 5-2. TJ Friedel hitting his first home run, 3-run home run. Nick Martinez continues to do a great job in the bullpen. I hope they never, ever move him from it, honestly. And Lodolo, while he wasn't at his best, still went 6 innings, still looked pretty strong overall. Joe, I think we said they needed to win at least 3 games. They did that. Would have loved a 4th game, honestly, somewhere in there. I think they had an opportunity in both the 2nd game of the Cubs series and the 3rd game of the Cardinals series to come out on top. They were not able to get it done. What did you see this past week with the Reds?
Yeah, I think we maybe expected them to go on a little bit of a tear here after last week's performance. We talked about how they did so well against the Dodgers. It's just not something I think that is reasonable to expect. We got our hopes up a little bit too much with this team. The hitting is getting better, but it's not quite where you want it to be yet, and there's not enough bats in the lineup who are producing to really make them a threat. Same thing as always too. I think the starters for the most part pitched well again over this last couple games, last week. Bullpen hit or miss still. I know we talked a lot about Lucas Sims last week. Lucas Sims gave up that big home run, and then Alexis Diaz is probably the bigger issue right now. I mean, 5.64 ERA. He brought it down, and he still didn't pitch well this week. So that shows you all you need to know. So if this team is going to be serious, they're going to have to figure out that bullpen. We know we have 3 good starting pitchers, and that's more than a lot of teams have, especially this year. So with all the injuries to starting pitchers. So that's what's going to be the focus, is just continue to improve the hitting, make sure the back end of the bullpen, specifically Alexis Diaz, figures it out. He is our closer. Most people say their closer is their best bullpen pitcher usually. A negative 0.2 WAR at this point in the season. That is... Yeah, that's pretty bad. So that's what I'm noticing the most. I do think they still have some bullpen pieces pitching well. Sam Moll down to 2.7 ERA. Lucas Sims, as you mentioned, 1 bad outing. His ERA is down to a 4.66. But overall, the last month he's pitched well. He had that rough month in April, so let's hope he doesn't slide back down now. Buck Farmer having a great season. But they just need to, like, a couple guys like Brent Sooner down to a 4.35 ERA. They need a couple guys who are like impactful bullpen people to kind of be a little bit more consistent if they're not going to be able to hit the ball, which they have not done a great job of all year.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think it's been interesting to watch kind of this bullpen that I think you and I both thought were going to be a lot better struggle lately. Like the month of May was not good for any part of this team. It is a miracle that we walked out of it as in the position that we did, because it could have been literally 100 times worse, to be honest with you. I think you and I both would agree with that. I can't remember what their May record was, but it was something like 8-18 or something like that. If I remember correctly, I heard it on the radio. I was listening to it with Joe's roommate Chris and my buddy Chris as we were driving the other day, and I was like, "Wow, that could have been a lot worse. Could have been a lot worse." That 3-game stretch there really, really helped them. They are 6-4 over their last 10 games, to give them credit. That is very helpful. You do that a couple times, and you're right back at 500. So I think that's going to be kind of what Joe and I are hoping for, especially as we look forward, which we will talk about the Rockies and then the 4-game homestand for the Reds. I think this is another really substantial 7-game stretch for the Reds, to be honest with you, Joe. But I wanted to dive into, because I think unless you have anything else to say about Cardinals Cubs, I feel like we kind of went through it. I will say this. I do believe we are the better team than the Cardinals for sure, and maybe the Cubs if we get our hitting a little bit better. I watched that Cubs series and I was not convinced that they were a great team, to be honest with you. I don't think they're a bad team, but while they have a substantial amount of injuries to their bullpen, we have a substantial amount to our lineup. You could say that that's a wash, but it really felt like we were the better team for most of this weekend, to be honest with you. So, and we can thank our starting pitching for that, because theirs has been sucky and ours has been pretty solid. So we'll take that. But do you have anything else to add to that?
I mean, you're right. The talent level is better than both of those teams, I think, on an overall basis. Production has not been better, so let's see if we can turn it around here soon.
Yeah, and that is surprising considering how much money both of them have spent on their rosters. We move on. I wanted to talk a little bit about the hitting, a little bit deeper dive. I was looking this morning, Joe, to get ready for our next series, and ESPN, will show you who's got the most home runs, who's got the most RBIs, batting average, right? Like right on the front pages there. Spencer Steer is now our highest batting average, qualified batting average, at 234. That is horrible. That's awful. Like, you want at least 270, 280 hitter somewhere around there. That is really bad. The weird part is our overall batting average has gone up again, even though I spelled that wrong earlier this morning when I was putting this in, but to 220. Okay, it's only 2 points, I think, from last week, but it did go up. We are up 10 points in the last, 2 weeks, I think. And I think you and I are both seeing it. People like Candelario are really, I will give credit to Jamer Candelario. He might have been the only person who hit all of May. I don't know that we are even still in this race without him currently. If he had hit a little bit better in April, we would probably be a little bit more in the race, but we'll take what we can. It's really felt like this team has been carried by different batters for just a couple different weeks, which I think has been disappointing to you, Joe, or to you and I, Joe. But the one thing that I noticed is I couldn't believe this as well, adding to the batting averages. Aaron Judge hit his 21st home run, I think it was yesterday, of the year. I didn't believe that. I had to see if they had maybe misdone, maybe they misspoke or something was wrong, but he has. The Reds have 54 home runs. The Yankees have 90 right now this year so far, Joe. We're almost getting lapped by the Yankees right now, which is tied for 9th worst. Home runs and averages are down. I saw somewhere that batting average for teams right now, like the average is 240. So we're not too far behind the pack. It's been a pretty rough year overall. But I wanted to ask you this. Ellie has close to double digits. He's our closest guy with 9. Marte and Matt McLain definitely have power. But are these going to be the guys that are going to hit over 30-plus home runs a year in your mind? And does it really matter? Does our lack of power and maybe, I think the batting averages will generally go up as we go throughout the rest of the season. But I wanted to point that out and then discuss the lack of power by this team, because I think that it is something to start noting, especially considering we play a great American ballpark.
Yeah, I don't think those are guys who are going to hit more than 30 home runs per year. Maybe on the off year here or there in their careers, they'll hit 30 home runs, but they're more of like pure contact hitters on my mind, solid contact, doubles hitters for sure.
Hmm.
Um, I'm going to get your permission real quick, Rob, to go on a little rant here because
Go.
something that's bothering me. This is a Major League Baseball tangent. Although the Reds need to be doing better in the world we are in, we changed the shift rules to make batting averages go up last year, right? And they did. They went up at least for the first couple months of the season. And then they keep on messing up the baseball these days. They're messing up the baseball to make it harder to hit, make more spin for the pitchers. Um, and the averages are down. It doesn't make it an exciting game. So like they sit there and change the shift, which I mean, yeah, has helped the offense in the short term last year. But like if you keep on messing with the baseball like they do every year to kind of get more home runs and strikeouts, what are we doing here? I just don't understand it. So watching these Reds games this year, I think has been a little harder than last year based on that. Obviously, we had a little bit more excitement last year with some winning and 12-game win streak and some of the young prospects coming up. But I really dislike that they continually say they want averages to go up, but then do things to make averages go down for everyone. Like you said, they're down across the league. I don't like that. But the Reds, they're in this situation now, so they have to figure it out, right? So the ninth worst average, as you said, or that was home runs. Sorry, ninth worst with home runs. Right. I do think that they need to focus more on power in the future. I'm a big contact and average guy, but being in Great American Ballpark, your pitchers are bound to give up home runs at some point, and you have to be able to at least match that in some regard. And this team is built very much on the contact spectrum. If you're looking at it, there's just not a lot of power, especially when they're not hitting the ball almost at all, and average-wise easier. But the goal seemed to be to get guys who hit average and get guys like that onto the roster. So I think it's important. I'm not the biggest power guy. I'd rather have guys get on base than then move them over and score runs, especially in today's day and age. But I think the good news for the Reds is, hey, after this year or even at the deadline, you can go get a power bat. You can go get a guy who hits 220 and can hit 30 home runs, maybe more at our ballpark for relatively cheap. So it is something important, but you know I would rather the young guys continue to focus on average and getting on base because I think that's where we're really struggling. I think if we raised our team average, Rob, by maybe I don't even know, like 10 points, and we always say like, hey, if we did better in one-run games, what if we raised our average by 10 points as a team? We probably are close to 500. I would imagine. I mean, it's a huge jump to even say that, but with how bad it is, you're right. Like 234 is our biggest hitter, our best hitter right now. I mean, I don't know about you, Rob. I remember the days where Joey Votto was consistently hitting 300, and we had two other guys like hitting 280, 290, 270. It's crazy to me that like guys who maybe weren't known as the best offensive players, maybe not bad. Like Brandon Phillips would be the best offensive player on this team right now,
Oh,
and
without a
that's
doubt.
just
Wouldn't
crazy to
even be
me.
close.
That's right. He hits like 270 career, like it hits some power. Like that's what's crazy to me how the sport has changed. And again, some of it's Major League Baseball's fault, but the Reds have to figure it out. Rob, we've talked about it a lot, and I'm going to ask you a question off of the question you asked. Is it time to get a new hitting coach? We're not hitting home runs. We're not hitting for power. We're not hitting for contact. Everyone who could have had a sophomore slump is having a sophomore slump. I've been encouraged by Jake Fraley coming in and getting more at bats. That's not really the hitting coach's decision. That's the manager's decision. Tyler Stevenson's been pretty good, but he doesn't play every day. It's that's my kind of thing now. I think the hitting coach maybe needs to go, but that's just kind of where I'm at.
I am fully on board with that. I will be honest with you. I mean, you've been hearing me talk about it a lot, and I appreciate you all bearing with me through it, including you, Joe. But what I've seen for the last month has made me really frustrated because, like, Candy is the only one I've seen, and maybe Stevenson are the only two batters that I've seen make major adjustments in their swings and the way that they are doing their at bats. And they are veterans, so they know how to. That was my whole point like 3 weeks ago when I was bringing it up is I was like, these younger guys maybe just don't know how to do it, right? And you may point to me and be like, well, what about Jonathan India? I don't know what's wrong with India, by the way. I don't know that guy has any power in his bat anymore. It's really scary to see how much the power has dropped from his bat. Like his slugging percentage is horrific for a full-time, multi-year starter kind of guy. I don't really understand what's happening, Joe. And to me at this point, there needs to be a new philosophy. Just bring in somebody who can change it up. Like we saw it last year with the Yankees. They got rid of their hitting coach, and while they didn't do a ton better, they brought in a guy like Sean Casey because they were having power but no average. He helped their averages at least a little bit. I would like to see maybe the opposite kind of guy. Go find somebody who's going to help you bring in a little bit of power. I know that sounds scary because we do strike out a lot, but like, dude, if Ellie De La Cruz is going to strike out 200 times a year, I want to see him hit 30 home runs. I was just looking at this, Joe. I think you'll find this to be interesting. Ellie De La Cruz has now played 157 games, 603 at bats, basically what we would see out of a full season from him. So I'm going to count this as his full rookie season right now. It's not bad, 234 average, but 227 strikeouts to 63 walks and 22 home runs. Okay. Now he does also have 67 stolen bases, which would be insane. So like there are ups and downs. Spencer Steer, I was going to point out as well. I think he may ultimately end up being a 30 home run type of guy. He had 23 last year. He was really heating up in the second half of last year. I could see that happening again for him where he maybe gets closer to 30 home runs if he starts to pick it up here in the next couple weeks. There are guys that I think can be 30 home run guys. You pointed out Tyler Stevenson. I think Jake Fraley is much more of a righties only kind of guy, which means he's going to get plenty at bats, but I think, honestly, moving forward, I think you just pair Fraley and Stu Fairchild together for the next 2 or 3 years, and you got a great platoon out there in the outfield. Honestly, you got Friedel in center field, you got Spencer in left, and you just need to get some more bats back and maybe trade for somebody and ultimately in the end. But I do think it's a philosophy thing as well, dude. I really do. I wanted to point out those couple hitters, but I think, like, dude, I've seen Will Benson be better than this last year. It's really sad to see. Like, if he was a 240, 250 kind of hitter, I would totally get it. Dude, the guy batted 275 last year. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not. I'm really struggling to say that every single one of our hitters are actually just straight up bad hitters. I don't believe that. I think something has to change. I think somebody has to come in and step up and maybe help these guys take that next step. And, if not that, then we're just going to have to pray that CES and Noel V. Marte coming back over the next few weeks, along with the TJ Friedel edition. I know he hasn't been hitting as well coming back, but I think he'll get there as he gets more comfortable as well. I think that's just going to be what we're going to have to hope for, because if they don't fire the hitting coach here soon, they're not going to this season, and we're going to sit there batting like maybe 240 by the end of the season, and you and I are going to be pulling our hair out. Like, we could have won a World Series if this team was even batting 250. Because our starting pitching's that good, and you could go out and easily get bullpen guys at the trade deadline. Like, they don't cost anything. Sam Mole's been one of our best pitchers, and we gave up literally a guy who I don't even know. I think the Athletics actually have used him, but I don't think he's been very good last I checked. So hopefully that answers it.
Well, so no. I mean, we had this discussion a couple weeks ago. There is the back of my mind hoping that these guys aren't bad hitters. Some of these guys will work out in the pro career, some won't. That's the numbers game. But to have everyone not doing this well, the first step is getting rid of the hitting coach. I really do think it's an organizational failure. I don't think this is like all the hitting issues are just on the hitting coach. I will not say that whatsoever. He's not fully to blame for this season. We've had plenty of issues, but it starts, ownership down. There's problems with the ownership. There's problem with the front office. There's identifying these players. There's problems with David Bell as the manager. We've pointed out several times this year. Problems with the hitting coach for sure. Problems with the players themselves. And when that happens, the easiest thing to do is get rid of the hitting coach there. And honestly, I'll throw in another thing here too. I mentioned earlier, starting pitchers are getting hurt at a higher rate, so you would think the quality of the pitchers are down in the league. The excuse for batting averages to be down this far in the league, and especially for the Reds to have some talent, is just unacceptable. Like, I mean, yeah, the baseball's changed and everything else there, but like, if the starters are getting hurt at the rate they are, we have several guys who are still even rehabbing. Like Max Scherzer, I think, is still out, and like they came out the other day that he's like getting closer and stuff. There's so many good pitchers who aren't pitching right now, and the averages are so far down. Like, that's what's crazy to me. But I think what we're in agreement on is the first step is probably getting rid of the hitting coach and then going from there. You're not going to get rid of Derek Johnson. You're not going to get rid of David Bell. No front office changes are coming. Trades could happen, but typically trades don't happen until the trade deadline. I mean, you can try to find some diamond in the rough in the minor leagues maybe somewhere, but like, that's the first step you could do to fix this team. Now, we've seen some improvements, like you said, over the last couple of weeks, and maybe they stick with it and see if you can get marginally better, but it doesn't seem like a team with this much talent should be having their highest batting average be 234 at this point in the season. That's pretty awful. If you told me they were 7 games under 500, I'd say you're crazy. I'd say they need to be 15 games under 500 if that's their highest batting average, because that's crazy.
Yeah, I think the thing that's been really frustrating me the most, Joe, is just the way the at-bats have been going. to be honest with you, is it just looks like a lot of times they're up there and they don't have a clue. And that's what's hard for me. Is it's like, where at what point are we at they're getting the wrong information or they're not making the adjustment? And I think this is the conversation that we've had multiple times, but I mean, you bring it up now and it's like, if you change the philosophy and things don't change, right? Then it's the hitters. Then there is no excuse. At least with the hitting coach, you can just cut him off at the head, and see what happens, right? And to be fair, all it takes is 1 week of them hitting the crap out of the ball, and they're kind of in a position to do that. We're not going to jump into this quite yet, but like, they have a very good opportunity over the next week plus, and really over the next month plus, to get their batting averages substantially up, because they did go through a gauntlet. I just saw on my way back that the Reds, or I guess maybe it was before I left from the airport, that the Reds faced the number 2 hardest strength of schedule through the first 2 months of the year, and now they have the easiest schedule through the rest of the year. So we've really been trying to hype that up. I think it is a very real thing. This month, the hardest pitching they're going to face is they'll probably face the Cubs' best new guy over from Japan. They'll face the Guardians pitching, which is good, and they'll face the Brewers. Other than that, Pirates hasn't been very good. Rockies have not been very good. Red Sox starting pitching hasn't been great. Pirates again, and then we know the Cardinals starting pitching is bad. If they're going to fix it this month and raise it like another 15 to 20 points, this is the time to do it. So, I think that's all I had about the hitting, Joe. I don't know if you feel differently or not. If you have anything else to add, let's do it. Otherwise, we're going to talk very briefly about starting pitching and then move on to our preview of the Rockies and the Cubs.
Yeah, Joel McKeithen is the hitting coach right now. Again, I'd say job is probably on the line here. The Reds don't operate the same way other organizations do, but I mean, if we were like the Yankees in a big media market, he'd already be fired.
Yeah.
So just watch out for that. Hopefully Joel can figure it out. Hopefully the Reds hitters can figure it out, and no moves even necessary. But that's the reality of the situation right now.
Yeah, and to be fair, we will never call for people's jobs without understanding that is literally somebody's job and their livelihood. We're just stating that if you're not doing your job, that is what it is. So either figure it out or you're going to have to go find a new one. So we'll move on to starting pitching. Somebody whose job I thought was maybe in question a year or two ago, but has really turned it around is Derek Johnson. Dude, this starting pitching, Green and Abbott had arguably their worst starts of the year, and the Reds still found a way to go 3-3, largely off the back of Nick Lodolo, and that's what happens when you have 3 great starting pitchers, Joe. When one or two of them are off and you get a double Nick Lodolo week, dude, this guy is awesome, man. I love him. I think he is so good. If they can just find a way to keep that man healthy, I don't care what they have to do. If he doesn't even have to play for the first month of the season every year so that he can stay healthy and make a run through the playoffs, fine. I don't care. I'm loving what I'm seeing right now. Even honestly, Graham and Montas have been solid. Like, if they get that ERA down to, I think, close to 4, maybe a little bit under, I think that our starting pitching is near elite levels, Joe. I mean, truly, they have been that good this year. They're not necessarily striking out a lot of batters, but I've loved the philosophy change of hit your best stuff versus my best stuff. Let's see who can do it. And I feel like our younger guys are starting to show that more often. And even against teams that maybe they're not exactly aligned to do as well against, they're taking care of a lot of the best hitters on these teams. The Otanis, the Freemans, right? Even the Julio Rodriguez's. I know he didn't play well this year, but they held him largely in check in that series, right? I didn't realize the Padres have the best batting average in baseball, and we kept them, I think, pretty under control, all things considered, in both our series against them. So, I mean, even the Phillies, Phillies and Dodgers, we are 4-3 against this year. And those are some of the best hitting teams in baseball. And I think our starting pitching deserves a lot of credit for that. So I wanted to at least point that out, that I honestly think if Hunter Green and Andrew Abbott have a normal outing, I think the Reds do go 5-1, and Joe ends up being correct in his prediction. But I don't know, Joe, if you had anything else to add to that one, but I'm not just putting it on them because they've been amazing all year. You're going to have a game or two a year, maybe even three, where you just have a bad outing. But like, it's kind of makes me feel a little bit better because the hitting was marginally better this week. And if those two have a normal outing where they only give up 2 or 3 runs, I think the Reds are winning both of those games.
Yeah, I mean that's been the most impressive thing. I think if you were trying to figure out your roster and what you have in the future, it's good to have the pitchers done first and
Yep.
figured that out. Having three high quality guys, that are pitching very well. The only thing that concerns me is Lodolo with the injuries. It just seems
Yeah.
like it always is like one thing after the next. But those three guys, and I've mentioned it before, but I'll say it quickly again: velocity with Hunter Green, placement with Abbott, and just the stuff that Lodolo has. I think Charlie Goldsmith pointed out in Lodolo's last start this week, he had more swing and misses on changeup this time as opposed to the
Which is
breaking ball.
crazy.
Usually it's the breaking ball that gets swing and misses, but he just changed his approach a little bit because the breaking ball wasn't working. That's awesome. I love that they're all different. I love that we have some sort of future here. The problem for Graham Ashcraft and Frankie Montas is more of like a, hey, you guys may not be in the rotation next year. This is your chance. So you're right, especially
Mm-hmm.
especially these next couple weeks here with the schedules and whatever, and we're not at the trade deadline yet. This is your chance to show you should still be here. Right now, they're all right. I mean, it's fine. I think the problem with those two guys specifically too is they don't have a thing like Green, Abbott, or Lodolo have. Like Lodolo's stuff is just the nastiest. Abbott's placement and Green's velocity. Ashcraft doesn't have like one thing he relies on. He's kind of good at a little couple different things there. Montas was kind of trying to be a veteran and teaching these guys how to pitch and not just throw. That hasn't really worked out. That's the tough part. But when you're talking about your guys who are your fourth and fifth best starting pitchers on a team that is 7 games below 500, yes, their job is safe for now. It's just, hey, I think these guys can get it together, especially Ashcraft because he's young. Montas, I mean, we'll see. Uh, but this is your time to show it. Is these specifically these next 2 months before the trade deadline? If the Reds do end up making moves, if they don't, then you probably get till the end of the year because, oh boy, we got as we said last week, Rob, we have Rhett Lauder, we have Williamson, we have the number 2 pick in the draft, which is probably going to be a hitter based
Big
on
hitter.
watching all these College World Series games. But there's no shortage of guys that in the next 2 years these guys can be replaced with. So it's put up or shut up time in these next couple months for those two guys at the end. But the top three guys, phenomenal.
Yeah, especially because I don't know if you've been watching, but Brandon Williamson has been really good. He's given up 1 run in his 4 games since his injury. He's got 13 innings, only 7 hits given up. Like he's striking out guys. His pitches, like he's not throwing many pitches during all this. Like this is all. It's looking pretty good. And I'll be honest with you, if either of them start struggling enough, it's like, sorry, dude. Like Graham could get sent down to AAA, and they'll just roll with 3 lefties in their starting rotation. I mean, Williamson was really good at the end of the year. I worried about him, but I don't know if there was a player the entire season last year that grew more than he did. He went from I don't even know, he might be a huge bust to this dude should probably be getting a chance at a top 5, like in the rotation guy. Imagine if they find a way to get him and Rhett Lauder going. Then you only have to worry about Montez, and you could probably move Ashcraft to the bullpen, to be honest with you, because he doesn't walk a ton of guys, and I personally think his stuff is nasty. Every single thing that he throws moves. So, I don't think he has a straight pitch. I don't think I've ever seen a fastball that moves the way that his does. He's got Sam LeCure's might have been still one of the best 2-seam fastballs I've ever seen the Reds have. But Ashcraft's is pretty solid as well. He just doesn't have as great of control over it. So.
And me and Chris West will disagree with you on the stuff aspect of it, but
Really?
I will.
His
Yeah,
stuff
we
moves
talked about
so
how he
much.
Yeah, I mean, it does. He doesn't get the number of strikeouts you would like for a guy who has, stuff. I don't know. I think it's good, not great, not elite like Odolo, and that's what I'm saying. Like he's not a master of it, and that's what's
Yes.
going to be tough. Is he's not the master of anything. But I do think a move to the bullpen could be the answer for Graham Ashcraft. Again, he has the next couple months here while we're waiting for Williamson, while we're waiting for Lauder, while we're all this stuff. Maybe less if Williamson continues to pitch well, but where he can focus on giving his all with every pitch, like bullpen players can. He can ramp up the velocity, hopefully get some more spin rate on his pitches. And that could get to a point where you're right, he doesn't walk a lot of people. And I think he can start missing more bats with his stuff and getting more strikeouts because, his strikeouts in 11 starts, 47 is like one ahead of Abbott, and Abbott is known as a contact pitcher too. So like if you're going to be a person who has stuff, let's make it miss more bats. And that move could really help him. I think it could be one of those things where we have enough starting pitchers. Let's move him to the bullpen, and he helps out our bullpen a lot because I do think he can improve with not having to save himself for a longer period of time like he does when he's a starter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm looking at Tony Santillan as well, like talking about the bullpen here real quickly. And it looks like he's been struggling a little bit over the last like week and a half or so, but generally he's been solid. I'm sure it's just him not getting the call ups. I can almost see the dates where they made call ups and he struggles on those. So might be a mental thing for him, but I still would not hate to see them actually give him a shot as well. I mean, you got guys. The one thing is you, I guess the point I'm trying to make as well to add on to yours before we move on is we have starting pitchers in the back ready to go. So, and just pitchers in general. All right, we got to move on though. Rockies and Cubs. Rockies come into this 21-37, one of the worst teams in baseball. It's going to be Andrew Abbott versus Ryan Feltner, Frankie Montas versus Ty Black, and Graham Ashcraft versus Dakota Hudson. Their closer, Jalen Beeks, he's not really been that bad, but he has blown 3 saves, and they have 5 different players with the save, so it almost seems like it's almost committee, but Beeks is probably their guy. Lineup, Charlie Blackmon, Ezekiel Tovar, Ryan McMahon, Elias Diaz, Chris Bryant, Brendan Rodgers, I think it's Ellie Harris Montero, Brenton Doyle, and Sean Butchered, something like that. Jay Cave, Jacob Stallings, Hunter Goodman, and Alan Trejo back in the back there. This team can hit even outside of Coors Field. McMahon's at 284, Tovar 297. He got a new contract after this pretty solid last year. Doyle's at 260, Diaz is at 301, Rodgers at 265. But they can't pitch, Joe. They are horrible at pitching. Feltner is a 5.46 ERA with a 150 whip and a 296 batting average against as a starter. That's awful. Black is a 4.15 ERA with a 1.27 whip and a 278 batting average against, and Dakota Hudson with a 5.02 ERA with a 148 whip and a 251 batting average. I point those out because those are the starters in these 3 games. Their bullpen is just straight up awful pretty much outside of Jalen Beeks. So, look, Joe, like, I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like we match up pretty well against this team. I don't know about you. I have one concern I'll bring up when I make my prediction, but I wanted to get where you were at first.
Yeah, this should be a 3-0 series. It should be a sweep. The risk you want with the Rockies is this team does stink. They're really bad. They don't have much talent. Well, at least they have talent that maybe they thought was going to be really like Chris Bryant, but he's not. His batting average is getting awfully low. But they go on streaks. Like they swept the Padres earlier this year, and it's just like, how does this team sweep the Padres? Even though the Padres have had their struggles this year, relatively, it just makes you wonder. Now, this is like the perfect time to get them for a couple reasons. Kyle Freeland on the IL. Mm-hmm. We don't have to face Austin Gomer. He's been their best starter this year, 3.05, 3.06 ERA. That's why we should win, because their bullpen stinks. Their other starters kind of stink. The hitting is good, but taking the fact, like you said, that they play in their own stadium, and that's very offensive friendly, but also it's kind of streaky like the Reds. It's better, but it's like a little bit streaky like the Reds. So this should be 3-0. Knowing how the Reds are playing, I will say 2-1. Winning the series is what I'll accept. If it's anything less than that, I will be very upset.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. The only thing that I'm worried about is Andrew Abbott's only issue is he gives up home runs. I'm hoping that they won't have many people on base. I'm hoping the ball, like, he'll be able to take care of it. They also have a lot of right-handed hitters, so it worries me a little bit, but that gives me hope considering it's Montas and Ashcraft. If we had our top 3 starters going in the series, I'd say 3-0, no doubt about it. I think we could handle them, even with Lodolo and Abbott being lefties. I'm going to pick a 2-1 just because this team can explode offensively. I'm leaning towards a 3-0, though. I would say I'm like 55% at a 2-1 and 45 with the 3-0. I could go that way very easily. I could almost flip a coin and feel the other way. I think to be safe, I'm going to go 2-1. This was going to be my 3-0 pick, and then I saw who our starters were, and I got a little less confident that all 3 of them would be able to handle what is a very good lineup. They are a solid hitting team, regardless of if they are playing at Coors Field or not. So we're going to have to hope. I mean, look, if the Reds go 3-0, I think it's personally going to be because they finally find their hitting in Colorado, and they just hit the absolute snot out of the ball off these pretty bad starters. Like, these are kind of about as bad as what we saw with the White Sox and the Angels when it comes to starters. So, and both of those teams we swept. So, and our averages were insane in both of those series. So, I don't know, Joe. I would love to see that happen again, but just the way it's been, I'm still going to lean towards a 2-1 as well with you. Any final notes before we move on to them old Cubbies one more time?
Nope, let's get to it.
All right, we go to the Cubs. We just beat them 2-1 at their place. They get to come over to our place to hang out for a little bit. 4-game series over the weekend as well. I'm not even going to try to predict the other team starters because I keep messing them up, Joe. But right now I know that we're going to have Hunter Green, Lodolo, Abbott, and Montas going this week. It's a double Abbott, double Montas weekend for our Redlegs. Closer is still Hector Neris. We know who their starting lineup is. We know who their backups are. Look, this team should be better. Joe, I will be honest with you. I think there are, between, players like Suzuki, Bellinger, even Happ, Swanson, like Morel, like those are your guys, and they're just not getting it done, to be honest with you. Their starting pitching did not scare me all that much, other than the name that I consistently say wrong, so I'm not going to embarrass myself. I will let you say it if you feel comfortable. I just consistently mess it up. I don't know why. Maybe I just need to see it, actually. Let me see. Imanaga, is that right? Imanaga?
Pretty much, you got it.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
All right. He has been unbelievable. I'm pretty sure we're going to face him in this series, to be honest with you. Probably towards the latter half of it, but I don't know. I don't think the Cubs are better than the Reds right now, especially with that bullpen, man. That bullpen is not very good. I want to go 3-1 here, Joe. I really do. I think we'll find a way to lose a game, but we're going to have a Friday home game with Lodolo pitching. Like, that feels like a really good opportunity. Hunter Green is starting us off on Thursday, and then you have Abbott and Montas. Like, they've all been like, even when Montas isn't great, he's still consistently giving you 5 or 6 like strong innings, allowing you to stay in the game. Like, he's keeping the Reds in the games in his starts, I feel like. I feel like we match up pretty well against this team too, dude. I'm going to go 3-1. I really am. You know what? I'm just saying it. I'm going 3-1. I'm predicting a 5-2 week for us. We get back to 4 games under 500, and I think we're both very happy. But I don't know. Maybe it's just the Cincinnati fan in me that wants to go 2-2 or 1-3 because it's the Cubs.
That's the tough part. Is on paper, this team should be closer to 500 than they are. I mean, tough schedule, so I'm not going to say they should be over 500 or a contender right now, but they should definitely be closer to 500. I think the funny part about the series against the Cubs this past week was that I think we found out how apathetic the Cubs fans are right now with their team, and it's warranted. But we barely got out of there with the 2-1 series victory. I was expecting a 3-0, as we mentioned before. I'm going to go 3-1 for this series as well. The reasons being, we get those 3 pitchers against the Cubs. That is huge. I do have some reservations with it. We do face Assad and Imanaga in this series.
Okay.
Both those guys are very tough. But I'm gonna go 3-1. I think we can get the job done. I am waiting for these Cubs players to just destroy us like they do when they come to Cincinnati. Ian Happ specifically, like we thought he would do in the past series when he hit that home run against the Reds. But yeah, I'm going 3-1. It's one of these very important weeks. I say we at least have to win 3 games this week again, or else the season's over. I'll do it again. Keep on moving the number up. If you lose more, 3, you have to win 3 this week. And the reason being you have to win 3 is because we talked about how easy June is, but after this week, we get to our hardest week of June, which is the Guardians and Brewers. Guardians at home, Brewers on the road. So I will take 5-2 on the week as well. If it goes to 4-3, it's okay. If it goes to 3-4, you saved your season. If it goes any lower than that, next week, could just end it, because that's how tough of the teams we are playing next week.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think we are in a good position to figure it out. I think is where I'm hoping that this week is going to go for us. I will remind everybody before we hop off here. I'm trying to get to the standings real quickly. By some miracle, the Reds are only 3 games out of a wild card spot right now. So that just shows you where things are at. The Cardinals are currently in the 3rd wild card position, Joe. And I'm just going to tell you, I really do think the Reds are a better team than the Cardinals. I think we just have a weird thing where we just still can't beat them. Kind of, I don't know. It's just a stupid little thing. But the Cardinals are not a better team than us. We still have a lot of games left to play against some bad teams. We still have the Nationals, Pirates, Mets, Rockies, and Marlins. Those are all of the bottom teams in the National League, and even in the AL. We still have the Tigers, like we said, the Red Sox, the Astros, the Blue Jays, the Athletics. All those teams are near the bottom of their of their leagues as well in divisions. So we're just gonna have to hope, guys. Like again, right now we're in hope mode. Hope the Reds can come out there and get it done. But I think that's gonna be it for me. You got any wise words for us before we head out, Joe?
I just have a good birthday, buddy. Hopefully the Reds can help
Thanks.
you with that.
Yeah, me too. I hope so. But we really do appreciate all of you who've been listening over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It means a lot to us. If you're finding us for the first time on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe as we're trying to grow this out and be able to bring you guys some great content. Joe and I love doing this. We love our Reds. We don't miss a game. So we really hope that you guys will continue to watch and support these Reds as well, because I think they will have a chance to make their run over the next couple months. So they'll need all the help that they can get. That's for damn sure. But yeah, guys, with that, we'll catch you on the next one.